Hello class, today we are going to talk about section 6.1, angle measures. Let's first start out by listing a few definitions. An angle is a figure formed by two rays with common endpoint. An acute angle is an angle that is less than 90 degrees. A right angle is an angle that is exactly 90 degrees. And an obtuse angle is an angle that is more than 90 degrees and less than 180 degrees. The last type of angle is a straight angle, which is an angle that measures 180 degrees. Looking below, we have an example of each of the types of angles. Please take a moment to pause this video, write down these definitions, and include an example of all of the types of angles in your notes. There are a few more definitions that we need to talk about. Complementary angles are two angles that have a sum of 90 degrees. Supplementary angles are two angles with a sum of 180 degrees, and adjacent angles are angles that share a vertex and a side but have no interior points in common. Adjacent angles are angles that are directly next of each other. Please take a moment to pause this video, record these definitions in your notes, as well as the examples of the pictures below of adjacent, supplementary, and complementary angles. Now that we know what supplementary and complementary angles are, we can use this information to help us find the measures of angles. There are 3 steps to this process. 1, write an equation. 2, solve the equation. And 3, calculate the angle measures. Please take a moment to pause this video and record these steps in your notes. Now let's try an example together. 2 angles are supplementary. One angle measures 3x minus 35, and the other measures 2x. Since the angles are supplementary, I know that the sum of the 2 angles is 180. Therefore, I can write the equation 180 equals 3x minus 35 plus 2x. Going through and solving the equation, the first thing I want to do is simplify. I can combine my like terms and get 180 equals 5x minus 35. Adding 35 to both sides, I get 215 equals 5x. Dividing both sides by 5, I get x equals 43. Now that I know what x is, I can go ahead and substitute it back into my 2 expressions for the angles and find out what the angle measures are. If I substitute in 43 into 3x minus 35, I get that the angle measures 94 degrees. If I substitute in 43 into 2x, I get that my other angle measures 86 degrees. Please take a moment to pause this video and record the example in your notes. I would again like you to take a moment to pause this video and try this example on your own. When you're done, please resume the video to check your work. Since the 2 angles are complementary, I know that they have a sum of 90 degrees. One is 5 times the size of the other, so my smaller angle is x, and my larger angle would be 5x. So I can write my equation 90 equals 5x plus x. Simplifying my equation by combining like terms, I get 90 equals 6x. Dividing both sides by 6, I find out x equals 15. Going back and plugging in 15 in for 5x and x, I can determine that one of my angles is 15 degrees and the other is 75 degrees. Please take a moment to correct your work if you need to in your notes. If you got it correct, great job, and you're ready to move on. Now I'd like to talk about vertical angles. Vertical angles are formed by 2 intersecting lines and are opposite of each other. Looking below at the example, angles 1 and 3 are pairs of vertical angles, and angles 2 and 4 are a pair of vertical angles. Please take a moment to pause this video, record the definition of vertical angles in your notes, as well as the example of vertical angles below. There's one more thing that we need to know about vertical angles. Vertical angles are congruent, which means they are equal in measure. Please take a moment to pause this video and record the statement in your notes. Now we can use what we know about vertical angles to determine the measure of other angles. Looking here at our first example, we see that angle B is vertical of an angle that is 40 degrees, which means that B is also 40 degrees. Looking at angle C, C forms a straight angle with an angle that is 40 degrees, which means that they are supplementary. So B and C are supplementary, which means they add up to 180 degrees. Therefore, C must be 140 degrees. Since A is vertical of angle C, that means A is also 140 degrees. Please take a moment to pause this video and record the example in your notes and try the next two on your own. Looking at the next two examples, we're given an expression and another angle with the degrees in it. Both of these angles are vertical of each other, which means they're congruent. So we can use the information we know about vertical angles to write an equation and solve for x. In the first one, 7x minus 9 degrees is vertical of an angle that is 110 degrees. Therefore, 7x minus 9 equals 110. When we solve the equation, we get x equals 17. In the third and final example, an angle with 4x plus 7 degrees is vertical of an angle of 131 degrees. Therefore, 4x plus 7 equals 131. Solving the equation, we can determine that x equals 34. Before you finish taking your notes, please record these examples in there and fix any mistakes you may have made, and write down at least one question you have about finding angle measures.